Hey,
Look,
Jess.
look at Slick Rick over there in the corner. What's going on? Hey, everybody.
How's it going?
There, how are you?
Jeff.
How are you?
I'm well. I can't wait to talk about
Good.
this book. Matter of fact, let me go
I'm
get it off
ready.
the shelf.
I'm
Listen,
ready.
I've got pages of notes. I've got notes written on paper. I've got like a whole iPhone note. Like every short story, I started writing notes. I know me and my mommy brain, and I'll forget stuff. So I have to like jot things down
Same,
as I go, or else it's trouble.
same. My youngest is 17 and I still have mommy brain.
Uh,
So you never
yeah,
get it back.
I blame it on everything. So
Yeah.
mommy brain.
Can,
I don't remember much.
can y'all hear my heater?
No, I can't.
Good. Okay. You know I'm still cold.
Oh, they didn't fix it
We were
yet?
talking about that.
No, he had to order the parts and they'll be in like 3 days. So I'm walking around my house with a space heater, but I'm blessed.
Yes, that
They're
you are.
walking around my house. So that's a blessing.
Yeah. I was just saying I can't stand the cold and it snowed here yesterday. I'm already over it. Over it.
Jess, you better jump on that Peloton.
I did this morning.
That'll warm you up.
I was cold when I got off though. I was like,
yeah.
My husband and I are the only people who chose to be in Massachusetts over Florida because we wanted to feel some actual seasons and weather versus like it's still too warm to be outside and just being sweating all the time.
That's what I said. Last week it was like in the 70s, and now in Monday it was like, what was it? It was like 39 or something like that when I walked out the house, and I was like, "Ooh, what is this?" Like
my grandma's in Georgia said it reached the 20s.
Yeah,
it was our coldest day since February on Monday.
Yeah, it had snowed.
I'm in Louisiana for everybody. It was like, you know, what is this? We just had a hurricane like 2 weeks ago. How do we have 28 degrees? It's crazy.
All right. Well, it is 8:04, so I think we can go ahead and get started. More people, like right now, are trickling in still, so I'll just add them in as they come. But first, I wanted to thank Deesha for being here with us. I'm just honored to have you at our book club discussion. Your book is amazing. It deserves all the accolades that it got.
Thank you.
It truly is a piece of art. I know so many of us in the book club were talking about it, and I know Keela had some questions. Like a lot of us just had stuff that we just had a lot of questions.
I'm ready.
Yes. So first I wanted to start off because I was reading, the back with the acknowledgements, and you talked a little bit about, you were thanking people and your writing, and I saw that it took you a few years to complete this novel. Yeah. So how was the writing process in coming up with this?
So the stories range from, something that I jotted down a sentence or two 3 or 4 years ago to things that I was working on last year to complete the collection after it had sold. So there's a range. And so that's sort of how my process is, that I write down everything, so I have an idea or just a line or something, or I overhear a conversation, or I read something really interesting and I save it. And then sometimes, I've got things that I have come back to a decade later and turned it into something. So it was a mix of those kinds of things. Or I'm thinking about, for example, Instructions for Married Christian Husbands. That was a story I'd written like 10 pages. But when I was finishing the collection, and so that was probably, over a year ago. And when I sat down and was finishing the collection, I wanted to include that story, but I didn't like it. I wasn't interested in it and the way it was written. And I was like, well, if I'm not interested, nobody else is going to be, because it was, these two people, it was the same character who, has affairs with married men. And then there was one man in particular. And I was like, I don't even care. Like, what? Somebody's going to catch feelings, boring. So, but what I liked were two pieces of those 10 pages. There's the part where there's sort of the ritual where he takes off the ring. And then there was another part, the introduction, where she's talking about how these men are low-hanging fruit. So I kept those pieces, and then it became the larger piece. So sometimes it's, it happened that way. But it did, the collection as a whole spanned over several years. The first two stories that I wrote, I wasn't thinking about a collection. So,
Wow.
it wasn't and then everything else was intentional though.
That's so awesome. I know a few of them stuck out for me in so many different ways. Peach Cobbler, I know a lot of people commented that was like one that just, they couldn't shake. Instructions for Married Christian Husbands, that was another one. Like I felt like as a single woman, that concept, even though I don't like the concept of being a homewrecker, but just her rules and how she had it laid out, and this, like, she was in charge and this is how you're gonna do it or else. Like, I just loved that about her. And then How to Make Love to a Physicist, like that was another one that I could relate to personally, because, being single, it's like your mind plays tricks with you. You have this in front of you and it's like, but it's too good to be true. Like, you don't know, and you start second guessing yourself, and it's like, you back off. It's like, this is too good to be true. And then she ghosts him and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like this cycle that I felt like I could relate to because of that. But anybody else have any that particularly stuck out, any of the short stories?
I think Peach Cobbler was probably one of mine. I was like, this could have been a whole book. It was just, it was so hard though. Oh my God.
Yeah, she wanted to not be like her mom, and then in so many ways was like her, and it was like, just craziness. And Bacon.
That was tough.
I couldn't shake her either, and I think that's why she showed up again later. And I didn't intend that, but I think I also, when that story ended, and I ended it with that uncertainty, and I think in my subconscious, I just was like, what happened to her? And so then when I was writing Instructions for Married Christian Husbands, and then there was the line of, I make the best peach cobbler in town, I was like, that's her, it's her. And so for better or worse.
Oh, wait a minute, I know who that is.
Right. Because those were my top two that I loved. And so to have that connection was amazing.
And I thought about the mom a lot in Peach Cobbler. I was like, what happened to her?
Yeah.
That she is resigned to just deal with this, and what happened to her?
And I think that was Keela's gripe, right? Keela wants more. So like, she's like, are you gonna?
No, but I don't want more from that story. I want more of Dear Sister. What is her name? Tashida?
Tashida?
Oh yeah.
Tashida. I want more Tashida.
I want her number.
I agree. I loved that one so much.
Yes, that was my favorite.
The sister comes back and we hear about all the sisters together. I mean, there's so much there.
And what I really liked about that one was that usually sisters who are half, which I all of my siblings are half siblings, but I don't like to call them that, but they're all my dad's children. And I think people don't, people say, oh, but those are your dad's kids. People take half siblings that are from the dad differently than from the mom.
Yeah.
And so, it's like the moms are really full. I'm like, no, they're just the same as my dad's 3 kids that are all my siblings. But I liked that they were connected through the dad. It wasn't a mom connection kind of thing. That was that resonated. Not my dad was not that quite like her dad, but like we, there are 4 of us with 3 different moms. And but we are siblings. But I appreciated that you wrote it from that angle.
Yeah, that's my situation. I have 4 half sisters through my dad, and we, amongst the and so there are 5 of us and 4 mothers. But I always tell people those characters are not my sisters. Like, none of my sisters can say, oh, that's me. I do have a sister who's a nurse, but she is nothing like Tashida. So, and she read the story and she liked it, and she's fine with it. But but you know, and that sister, my sister who is a nurse, our mothers did raise us like sisters. You know, we have two different mothers, but they raised us to be close. But I didn't have a relationship the same way with the other sisters. And so that story was an opportunity. Sorry, my dog is knocking things over. For me to sort of imagine, you know, kind of who we could have been as sisters. And we do our fifth sister, we didn't know her. She wasn't, she didn't have a relationship with our father at all. And we did have, it was our stepmother's mother who said after our father died, you know, she has a right to know that, you know, he passed away. And so we reached out to her, and I think we scared her because all four of us called her at the same time. And you can imagine, you know, what that was like. And I think we overwhelmed her. And so she kind of backed off, but then, and they're all down in Jacksonville where I'm from. And it's been 15 years since then. They all got to know each other, but I was always here in Pittsburgh. And then last year, our grandmother turned 90. And so when I went home for her birthday party, it was the first time all five of us were together. And so the story was an opportunity for me to kind of imagine what those relationships could have been like. But I try to respect my family members' privacy, and so they don't show up in my stories. But I had a lot of fun with that one, sort of creating relationships with those sisters.
Yeah, all I kept thinking about was the sister on the receiving end of that letter, and I'm like,
yeah,
he's spilling everything, all the business. Like, I was trying to figure out, like, what is the sister that's receiving this going to be thinking of, like, this circus of a family that, you know, because she wasn't holding back in that letter. Everything was being told. So, yeah. Not Daniel was another good one that I appreciated. Their bonding over, you know, their moms being in hospice and things like that. And, you know, it's like, it's so hard because you develop this sympathy for these characters, but at the same time, it's like, you're a married man and you're cheating, you know, and it's like, but at the same time, it's like, I understand though, you guys are kind of like, you know, in that place together, and, you know, feelings are building over that. So, yeah.
I wanted there to be kind of the tension so that, you know, I think there's a little of that in all the stories where, you know, you're tugged in a couple of different directions, and it shows that, you know, so many situations that we encounter aren't always clear cut, you know, or, you know, for some people it is very clear cut, you know, but the challenge for me was to write them in a way that did, you know, pull you in a couple of different directions.
And then Snowfall was another interesting one. I loved all of them. It's hard for me to like really pick my top ones, but Snowfall was another beautifully written story.
Thank you.
And I appreciated the two main characters because they chose themselves and their happiness versus their mothers and the judgment from everybody else. So that was kind of a reminder to just like, do you know, whatever's going to make you happy, do that. You know, and at the end of the day, it still was a battle within, you know, the two of them. You know, the jealousy of even seeing your partner being able to have a slight relationship with their mother when you don't have one at all, and that caused friction. But at the end, she kind of gave her that permission to maintain her relationship with her mother, and I thought that was so beautiful. Like, suck it up, do what you got to do. To see your partner happy means more than, you know, holding these feelings in. So.
Can I read a passage that I underlined in that story that I would just, and it took me into, where are the quilts? Where are my grandmother's quilts? What happened to it? But like a beautiful quilt in summertime, my mother's love was the suffocating kind, the kind you chafe against and don't miss until the seasons change and it's gone. I was like, wow, and I think a lot of people have that feeling, especially, you know, once your mother passes too. Yeah. It's like, oh my goodness, I missed that suffocation. You know, we don't appreciate it when we have it, but when it's gone, it feels a lot different.
Yeah, I highlighted that passage too.
I did too.
That was beautiful.
Yeah,
thank you.
I said, "Ooh, I got to write this one down." That was beautiful.
And it makes me appreciate the suffocating love that I get from both of my parents,
Mm.
because I tell them all the time, I'm 50. And they're like, okay, and we're 70.
Right. You're still their baby. You're still their baby.
Or 70, they're 71. I'm like, I'm 50. Come on. And I'm like,
Doesn't
deal
matter.
with it.
Yeah.
I can relate to that too, because with my friends, one of my friends' moms passed, and my mom is very protective. We're well into our 30s, and sometimes I'll find myself saying something to my friends, and she's like, well, at least you have some suffocation. I don't have my mom. So that puts things in perspective for me too.
I've said that to one of my friends who complains about her. Oh, she gets on my nerves. I said, and I don't want you falling out. When she closes her eyes, I'm gonna make you get up off that floor when you stretched out in front of that casket when she's gone one day. Appreciate her getting on your nerves right now, because one day you won't have her here to do that.
Yeah, Keela knows my friend Crystal. We all went to college together. And if Crystal and I go to a concert or whatever, and I have to travel to about an hour and a half to get there, and my dad's like, well, you guys be careful and make sure you do this and make sure you do that. Daddy. And I was just like, okay,
That's good stuff. That's good stuff.
It never goes away. I'm like, I'm a grown woman now, and you're still chastising me.
Yeah, like I have my own kids.
Right.
Doesn't matter.
It never changes, but we'll deal with it as long as we have to, right?
And I've also been spoiled because I don't check the weather because my parents call me about it.
Yes. Yes. If there's a storm, are you guys okay over there?
Yeah. That's my grandfather. Even though like there's a almost like 20-year age gap. Like I was in college when my cousins, my generation, the next after me were born. And so it's like my grandpa will send a group text like these days and include them who are in high school and myself and like bundle up, it's cold outside. I'm like, really?
You're one of the kids.
Right. And I was like, he does have great grands through me. So maybe he's, putting it out there for them too. But I'm like, really? Like I get thrown on this text message with the little ones. They're looking out.
Keela, it's funny that you said you have your own kids, because I asked her, I said, when are you going to stop babying me? She said, when you have some children. I was like, well, I got furry ones. Can you stop now?
Never.
Right. Don't hold your breath.
No.
Another one, when Eddie Levert comes, that was so sad for me, for the mother too.
Yeah.
And even though the daughter was like the mistreated one, she just loved her mom and was still there for her through all of that. And I'm just, that was beautiful to read too.
Thank you.
But the mother, I just felt so bad.
Called daughter by everyone was a little bit heartbreaking. I like the line of, obviously she's referred to as daughter throughout, but the line about, I think it's her brother who calls her daughter. Do I have that right? Somebody, she refers to somebody calling her daughter, and I was just like, oh wow, like that hit me in a way.
Yeah, because that's what happens. We just become our function. We're not our own. We're not a separate person from what we can do for people. And I think a lot of Black women endure that, and a lot of women in general endure that silently. And so, I wanted to look at like, what is it from the perspective of someone who's basically just the caretaker all the time?
Yeah. Bless her. I felt for her. I was like, oh.
In that story. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jessica.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, did Mama and Eddie really influence conversation?
I was in another book club and somebody said, Mama and Eddie hooked up, right? They told me. I was like, I think so too.
They did.
I
agree with it.
Stuck on him. Yeah, something had to have gone down.
Eddie's coming.
Right.
Listen, I would, if somebody could get my book to Eddie Levert, I would just die. I would just die. And there's a thing, I forget the service now where you can have these people like call somebody for their birthday and he's on there. And I'm like,
I met him. I have a picture with him too. Now I hope it's not me one day sitting there saying, Eddie's coming today. I took a picture with him in Orlando in 2002. Keela at the Boule in 2002.
Oh my goodness.
Yep, they performed, and I got to go to our international president had a reception for some of the undergrads, and I went and I took a picture with Eddie Levert. I have it somewhere around here, so I pray that I am not the one sitting in the chair.
You sound like
it
Eddie's
is
so- You really sound like you could be. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I have a picture with Eddie Levert. When I read that story, I was like, I gotta find that picture.
I would have died if you brought that picture out today.
Right. It's probably at my mom's house. Yeah.
No, what I was going to say was I like how you kind of weave in like church traditions. Like in this story, the whole thing about Mother's Day and the white flower.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
my mom passed away when I was 10, and we went to a Baptist church. So every Mother's Day, my grandmother would find a white flower, and I would be so mad. I was like, no, I don't want this flower because my mommy's dead. I wanted my mama back. So I didn't embrace it until I was older, and then I had a big white corsage that I wear on Mother's Day now because it honors her. But as a child, it was just, we were probably one of only a couple other kids in the church who had white flowers. Everyone else had red flowers. So I was like, I've forgotten about that tradition. And when I saw it in the story, I was like, yeah, she's been to church.
Yeah, I did. 70s and 80s during that time. That was the tradition. And I remember seeing, I don't think I ever saw a child with a white flower. But you would see older people with the white flowers, and I would feel sad for them because they didn't have their mom. But I never thought about what that meant for children.
Yeah.
I
hated
hard.
it. Oh, I hated it.
Did they even give flowers to children? I don't think
we
they
got
did.
flowers at our church. We got flowers at our church. Everybody had those little petals on.
Yeah, the red and the white.
Oh, we came with ours. No one gave us anything.
Yeah, we that's what
we left home with.
Yeah, we left home with it.
Yeah,
because I knew when I was a kid, if I went to a funeral, they didn't dress the kids in black.
White.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
You were white. I wore white to my mom and dad's funerals.
I remember that too. Oh gosh. Now, is this all? Were you all in the South, or I don't know if this is a black?
Yes, I was born and raised in South Carolina.
Me too.
Okay.
I was born and raised in New Jersey, but my grandmother came from Virginia to come take care of us. So I pretty much knew a lot of those traditions through her.
Yep.
I appreciated when I picked up the book. I expected more overt church traditions, and obviously some of the stories it was stronger than others. But I appreciated the way that it was kind of woven in. Some of them were those touches, and I felt like that made a stronger collection than just being like, we're going to beat you over the head with every little thing you could possibly think of. And I thought that really made it a strong collection that way.
Thank you. And, for me, it was important that the women be the center, not the church.
Right.
And so it's like the church was in their orbit rather than the other way around.
And I love that because it's so realistic. Like there's so many women out there who are Christian, but also battle with doing what's right, but also this is what I need. So, it's kind of, I love to see that balance. Between the characters too, like we're not all angels, and I could totally relate to that too. So I love seeing that throughout.
Yeah, when they did the love offering of Peach Cobbler to "I Love You, Lord" today, I had this song. I was singing it. I love you. I started singing it.
I was
That
too.
was it. At Abyssinia Missionary Baptist Church, they would stand up there, Reverend Diamond and Sister Diamond, and his wife would stand up there, and I was so curious about her because she never really talked. And, she was very matronly and everything, but she reminded me of, do y'all remember the movie Richard Pryor, Which Way Is Up?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And remember Sister Sarah? She looked like Sister Sarah. So I was like, she got a little freaky past, I bet.
I did have a question for you because I know we had this discussion with Reggie Reeds and oh God, I can't think of his other name. The other guy.
I think it's a black man reads, isn't it?
Black man reads.
Yeah.
But someone was curious when something was written, and I think God was in small g. And I kind of mentioned, I said, well, maybe it's in small g because God isn't the center of these stories.
Right.
And then someone said it was a typo, but I think it was a little bit.
If I'm not mistaken, and I'd have to check, I think it's different in different stories because I think, for example, in Eula, when they're talking about God, especially when Eula's talking, or even when Caroletta's talking, I'm looking on page 2, it's capital G. And then there may be other places when they're referring to a God or someone, and it's less reverent. I think it was lowercase. At least that's how it is in my head. I think that's what we did in the book. I don't remember, but yeah.
Yeah, I kind of thought that maybe because it was in a small g that maybe God wasn't so centered and the story was based on the women who are centered in these stories. Yeah.
Yeah, it depends, but definitely in Eula it was a capital. So I just checked that.
Grammatically, it kind of makes sense in a, like, if you're referring to my God, that would be a lowercase g versus a referring to God as a name. That's an oversimplification of how you refer to it. But sorry, journalist who keeps AP style and thinks of grammar things.
Yeah, I think it was totally. I think it was part of that too. I think where it made sense for it to be a small g. Yeah, but someone thought it was a typo. I'm like, no, I don't think it's a typo.
No, and also, when the way I was raised, you always write God with a capital G.
Right.
And then, when people talk about God, people who are not religious or, who don't believe in, a God, then they would write it lowercase. And so I think it just depends on whose perspective, in a particular story are we looking at it from. So,
Well, we skipped over Jael.
Yes,
or
that was my girl.
Jael is how I got it. Jael, is that the correct?
I like
so
Jael.
I say Jael, and then in the Hebrew it's Yael, like Yahweh. But we say Jael in terms of saying it the English way. So
she's hardcore.
Now, I have a question for you
like
all.
Jael.
I have a question for you all that I asked in another book club. So if this was a girl who was in your life, let's say you were a neighbor or a church member and you knew what happened, you knew what she did, would you turn her into the police?
No.
Look, I'm like,
I don't know.
I don't think I would.
I don't think I would either.
If you knew the whole story, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Right.
Somebody in one group said they wouldn't turn her in, but somebody was like, but she couldn't come to my house.
Right, that part.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's how I feel like. I feel that way about Doris, the famous jewelry thief. I'm like, yeah, I would love to have a conversation with her, but she can't come to my house because she'll steal my jewelry.
Yeah. I'm just not wearing any, period, around Doris.
That's exactly right.
I don't think I would. I mean, you wrote it so perfectly that the assumption is she went in there and turned that stove on and she got up out.
Right.
I didn't see it, so I can't tell.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I have no
I don't know.
Heard. So
he burned up in that house, child. I don't know what happened to him.
I don't know nothing about that.
Oops.
Oh, I went when that happened. I went, oh.
I did too.
Look, right.
And I think Renee, I really think, coming off of Grown being our last book to this, I was like, well, no telling what
happened.
Right.
Our grandmother, our great grandmother, was hilarious to me. She was
I like
her. Talk about
I don't know what's wrong with this girl.
And then her fascination with Sweet Sadie too.
Yes,
Sweet Sadie.
Those two perspectives just were so great in that story.
Yeah.
And, you know, it would have been such a different story to only have one of them and being so contrasting. I mean, this is what stood out to me through the whole collection. I struggle with short stories in general because I want more. They don't go deep enough. I don't connect to characters in a short period of time. Every character is so strong, and they grab you from like the first few pages. And I guess I was wondering kind of how you're able to write that in such a short space that you know, you in that story, you know, yeah, it's one of the longer stories, but you have two characters who are so fully developed in what could be a chapter of a novel in length.
Yeah.
So how do you develop that?
I mean, there are a couple of things. There's a lot of writers talk about sometimes you have to tell yourself the story first before you know, get to the story that's actually published. And sometimes when I'm telling myself the story, I actually write it. And so some of these stories, there's a lot that I write that never shows up, you know, in the actual text that gets published. But when you write out that, when you tell yourself that story, and it could be, you know, telling yourself stuff about Granny or telling yourself stuff about Jael that never makes it into the actual text, you kind of learn then what's important, and you learn how to, you know, to say the things, you know, you say more with less. And so, but it comes from really knowing the characters well. And sometimes it's just me thinking, you know, I spend a lot of time like thinking about the characters in the stories while I'm writing or before I'm writing, or if I get stuck. So much of writing for me a lot of times is just sort of thinking about it, and I'll get an idea as I'm driving down the street, and I usually call myself and leave myself a voicemail. And, you know, so I don't lose it because I'll forget. So I think that's part of it, is that just when you know the characters very well, then you can give them things to say and do that are very revealing and that can pack a lot of punch. And sometimes you have to write to that. And so sometimes in the editing process, you realize, oh, this was the line that really says it all. I don't need all this other stuff that came before. But you can't get to that until you write a whole bunch. And that's the kind of writer I am, that I tend to be very long-winded, and then I have to go back and edit things down after the fact. So I think for, at least for that story, that's how it happens. And then other times, form, like I like to play with form, and that helps me to be succinct. So if you think about How to Make Love to a Physicist, I got that first line, you know, it happened on Pi Day. And then it was probably like 6 months or almost maybe a year before I went back to that story. And all I had was that line, but I knew that there was a physicist and there was somebody who was going to make love to him. And then I had to figure out, who are these people? And then how did that happen? And then I wanted that refrain, how do you make love to a physicist? So already now I've got a constraint, because I'm going to have to keep coming back to that, right? And so it's going to be these vignettes. Same thing for Dear Sister. It's a letter. Now, granted, nobody actually writes a letter with all that dialogue and all that kind of stuff, but you know, people will go with it. Having the letter format kept me, you know, it kind of gave me again a box that I had to work within. So sometimes it's form offers the constraint that I need. Sorry, my dog is snoring.
You know what? I like Dear Sisters. I like it, and I'm thinking, ooh, I like this story collection, and I wish, you know, Netflix would pick it up and do like a docu series of it. That's my mind. But Dear Sisters speaks to that. I mean, here you have this woman who is a stranger, who is sending this letter to her sister to let her know that the father that she never met died, in the intimacy of that letter.
Yeah. Yeah. Dog. I can tell you all a little secret. So this I'm hoping that will come to television, but we'll see. There's been a lot of interest in adapting this collection for television. And there's nothing that I can announce right now, and it's killing me, but just stay tuned for that.
Good.
But I am
Yay!
excited.
We will be
I am
patient
excited.
Yes, that's so awesome.
because I see it. I see it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Did we talk about Not Daniel? Because I came late.
A little
A
bit.
snippet, a little
Just
bit.
briefly, a little, not much.
but
I
that
came
goes
late.
to the
I
that
was
goes to
like,
the
I
whole
really-
point of the depth that story is what 4 pages in a snippet.
Yeah, that's the shortest one.
And it is chock full. It is a full story. I mean, there is
Yeah.
not a, you know.
And you know
And
what? And
it-
also, it to me, because I've had similar experiences, so that story related to me, how it is when you have a parent that, for me, a parent that dies,
Mhm.
and it speaks to the loneliness, the loneliness of these two characters.
Mhm.
Because I've always said, you know, when that last person leaves your door at the repast, it is the loneliest day of your life.
Mhm.
So even though that story was 4 pages, yeah.
And it, you know, back to the question about how to, you know, create characters and situations that people can connect to in a short amount of time. You know, not Daniel is one where, you know, I knew it was going to be a moment of these two people finding comfort each other, you know, through sex in this particular night. So it was already, you know, this finite piece, but we needed to know who those people were, who they were, in order to, you know, care and connect. And so, you know, in the way that I was able to do that, instead of, you know, telling you everything you need to know about them, is it's right on page 13 where, you know, here are all the things that they have in common, right? That they, you know, that this is why they can connect, because they're dealing with all of these same things. And so, you know, it accomplished 2 things. It's sort of like the economy of things, you know, like in one paragraph, I can tell you why they're connected, and I can tell you something about who they are. So, you know, so if you can get words or paragraphs to do double duty, that's another way that you can, you know, build character and that people can connect. If the things that people say tell you about the character, then you don't have to spend a lot of time talking about who the character is. Like with Tashida in Dear Sister, you learn who she is by what she says. You didn't have to do a lot of backstory about her. She came in and everything that came out of her mouth told you exactly who she was.
Right.
So
That's awesome. So I want to pause for a second because Deesha, I know we talked about this before everybody else got on, but I had like, if you guys follow Support Black Authors, I know it's hard to see with my ring light and stuff, but she sent me like a little trivia game. So I meant to open us up with some questions. So I just want to pause and kind of ask these.
Okay.
So you can either say them out loud if you know the answer, or you can type it in the chat, whatever you prefer. All right, so here we go. What year did Toni Morrison win the Nobel Prize for Literature? A, 1992, B, 1993, C, 1994, or D, 1995? No Googling too. You can shout it out if you know the answer. That's fine.
Is it 93?
93.
Good job, ladies.
Yay!
It is 1993. All right. The next one. This author was born Chloe Anthony Wofford in 1931. A, Audre Lorde.
Toni Morrison.
Toni Morrison.
We all do that one.
Yeah,
Toni Morrison.
Y'all just some little Toni Morrison fans over here.
Yes.
Look.
You are too.
Okay. What is the title of the first novel written by an African American published in the USA? A, The Red Record, B, Our Nig, C, Lola Leroy, or D, Quicksand?
Our
fiction
Nig,
or
I think.
nonfiction?
B.
Any other answers? Our Nig is the correct answer.
Woo! I have
All right. Who was the first woman of color to receive the Pulitzer Prize for fiction in 1983? A, Maya Angelou, B, Octavia Butler, C, Toni Morrison, or D, Alice Walker?
Toni Morrison.
Octavia Butler.
Alice
Any other
Walker.
answers?
It's either Alice or Toni.
Alice.
Alice is
Alice.
the correct answer.
Okay.
All right. Last one. Who said, and this one I think is fairly easy, y'all should get this. Who said this quote, "To be a Negro in this country is to be relatively conscious, is to be in a rage almost all the time"? Anybody?
James Baldwin.
James
I was
Baldwin.
gonna say, do I even need to
Yeah.
say
James
the choices?
James Baldwin. James Baldwin.
Listen, y'all did good with that. They're cute little questions. There's a ton of them, so I hope to do these every time we have a chat and do them.
And
But yeah.
Renee
Are they
is on
on-
one of the
One with you on.
cards.
Yes, I am on one of the cards. I
Yeah.
can't remember which
Yeah.
one I am.
We want to hear
Oh,
that
in
one.
there.
We want to hear
You
that
know what? I
question.
can buy those cards.
Of course, you're gonna ask me that what card it is, and I just mixed them all up.
It was
How do you
what
announce
it was
that and
what
not tell
book
us at the meeting?
it was
I just don't know.
what
It was about the
Bookstagram
festival, yeah, but I
Yeah.
don't know.
what Bookstagram has an annual festival for readers or something like that. And it was well-read Black girl was the answer, but you were like C.
Okay.
Yeah,
I memorized your card.
I
Fred.
do. I remember it, but to see, I've shuffled all of it, so now I'm like, I don't even know. But I was surprised because I was just like shuffling through them quickly, and I saw my name or the book club name on there, and I was like, what is this? And she didn't tell me that when she sent it either, so I was like, that was really cool. Oh, here it is. Yeah. This book club holds an annual festival to celebrate Black women readers and writers that seek to initiate meaningful conversations within the literary arts. A, well-read Black girl. B, BookCon. C, Book Girl Magic. And D, Y'all Fest. So that was really cool.
That's a prophetic card since we're talking about church ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your conference is coming up.
Look,
Right.
soon enough, right?
And we won it in Jamaica.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Well,
Listen,
y'all know we
you
do
gotta
have that
travel.
retreat. See, y'all missed out. We really did have that retreat, but
No, that's why I said we can do it in Jamaica.
Wait,
Yeah.
I thought it was canceled.
It's postponed. Because we already had a bunch of people that signed up for it and have already paid in full for it. So yeah, it was supposed to be in April of this year. And of course the pandemic shut everything down. So so we're pushing it to hopefully 2021, but I definitely want to do more and maybe on a bigger scale since we have a lot more followers and stuff now too. I think it would be
If you want to ever do one in the ski lodge, I'd be down for that.
hey, okay. We might be able to do that. It's awesome. Okay. Y'all did a great job with those questions. So I will definitely be incorporating those more. I did have a couple more questions myself, and then I'll kind of open it up to the floor if you guys have questions before we wrap up things. So one thing in reading up on you, Deesha, I was, doing my research and finding out some stuff, and this really stuck out to me, that you collaborated with your ex-husband and wrote a book called Helping Your Kids Thrive in Two Households After Divorce. Now, how on earth did you get to that level? Because listen, I'm like, I've been divorced for 7 years now. My twins are 8, and we're just getting on a path of like being able to co-parent and so how did that work out?
I mean, everybody's situation is different, but for us, he and I get along great when now that we don't have to be married to each other, and so, we met in college. Like our first date was my 18th birthday. Like we raised each other basically.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't a lot, there was definitely a lot of hurt. Obviously there were reasons that we got divorced, but once we no longer had to deal with each other as partner, as romantic partners, as intimate life partners, we focused on our kids. And that's one thing we were always on the same page where the kids were concerned. And so it was like, once we just realized, okay, our focus is on them, and then we've got to, whatever issues there were with us, that's over, but now we've got to do our own healing. And so, we both had to heal, but we were always present for them. And so, people would congratulate us on being, mature or not, wilding out. And they were like, you're the poster children for divorce. And it was like, okay, I don't know that that's something you aspire to, but okay. And my ex was like, yeah, people are always saying, that, we should write a book. And he's a banker. And so he's like, yeah, you should write a book about this. And I said, I think it might be more compelling if we did it together. And not to say that, everybody needs to be able to write a book together or be friends or whatever, because, that's just not in the cards for a lot of people. And you don't have to be friends. You just have to take care of your kids together, And so we started building a platform on social media. We had a blog, we had a podcast, just to hear from co-parents what would they find helpful in a book? Like, what are the things that they needed to work through, and different scenarios? And what do you do when you're trying to be cooperative, the other person is wilding out? Or logistical things. How do you come up with a parenting agreement? So, so we took a few years and we built that, and then wrote the book proposal, got an agent, and sold the book. So that was a huge detour for me, because I wanted to be writing fiction, but you know, there was a chunk of my life that was all everything co-parenting. So yeah, that was my first book.
That's awesome. And I saw that
Yeah.
and I was like, wow, that's really cool. Like, that's a level of maturity that you can get to, like, that people aim for, seriously, because it's
Yeah.
just, it takes, you know, depending upon your
It takes
situation,
time.
it takes a lot to get to
Yes.
that point where you're able to co-parent and be friendly and want to be around each other, to even write a book and
Right.
spend time talking with one another. So
Right.
kudos to y'all for
Thank you.
being
And
able to do that.
we wanted to give people strategies. Like, if you're not there, what are some things that you can do to still spare your kids, right? So if you can't stand the sight of each other and there's all this fighting, like, is there a third party that can handle your you know, your handoff of your kids? You know, just trying to, we wanted it to be practical and meet people where they are.
Yeah.
So
It's so awesome.
thanks.
And my last question for you before I open up to the floor is, are there any upcoming projects that you're working on that we can look forward to?
Right. So I alluded a little bit to the one that I can't really talk about. So hopefully, you know, at some point there'll be an announcement, but these things move very slowly. But I'm really thankful that right away there was interest in adapting it. So, you know, so some things, you know, hopefully will come to fruition. And then I'm working on my novel that I started in like 2007, but then there's some days when I'm like, do I want to do that, or do I want to do another short story collection? So there will be a second book. I just don't know yet what it's going to be.
I say do both.
Right? So, okay, so which one will I do first? You know,
right.
So, like that. So yeah, so just continuing to work, and you know, hopefully there'll be both of those things at once, some sort of adaptation as well as the second book.
And this is just a question that popped in my head, hypothetical situation, but let's say your publisher said that you can get a second deal, but it has to be a continuation of one of the 9 short stories in your book. Which one would you choose to adapt into a second novel?
Oh gosh, I mean, I might have to say Peach Cobbler, because that seems to be the people's choice.
Yes.
You know, and that would be an opportunity to look at the mother and really kind of go deeper with her. And one of the reasons I didn't go as deep with her is because I felt like for many of us as children, we don't know our parents' story. We don't know why, always understand why they do the things they do. And maybe not until much later, but certainly in our younger years, we may not understand them. And in her mother's case, she wasn't trying to help this girl understand, you know, why she was. It was just sort of, this is the way it is. But a book that continues where we left off could reveal more about the mother, but also something that was more of a prequel and more focused on the mother would be an opportunity to explore her. So yeah, maybe that one. But all of them, I think, could, you know, have that potential. So
yeah,
I see Dear Sister as a sitcom.
Yeah,
that would
going
be a
forward. I see that as a sitcom. I would watch it.
You know what? I would look at it more as a dramedy, and because I mean, I really like that story. I think it's a good story. Particularly if you did like flashbacks of it with him, and how these sisters finally all meet. That would be great to see. Yeah.
Curious just what you were saying about mothers and not knowing mothers. Has anybody, if you guys read The Secret Women by Sheila Williams, because that's a major theme there. It's 3 women whose mothers have passed either recently or longer ago, and they're getting to know their mothers as people, not mothers, after they've passed. And that I read that this summer, and it's something that stuck with me because of that exact theme. That's just so interesting, you know, to bring up that story from the peach cobbler story, your story from that perspective. It's just really interesting.
Yeah. Like the Joy Luck Club too, which is another thing that I was thinking about. My mother did not like that movie. I mean, I enjoyed the movie, but she did not like that movie. And I think the reason why she didn't like it is because I think there was some underlying issues between my grandmother and her.
Yeah, and a good story will stir that stuff up.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
About it.
So I have a quick question. So I am I'm wondering if you have participated in any discussions around this book with faith-based organizations, or if you've heard of any discussions with faith-based organizations, and kind of how your conversation has been different than doing it with the book club. And I ask this because, you know, I'm a
Wait, did she drop out?
She froze. No, she froze.
Okay.
Britt, come back.
Ah,
she's just frozen.
At a pivotal point in the question.
I know.
We can hear you, Britt. We can hear you, Britt. Okay.
Okay. Am I back yet?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, but I asked that because, you know, I've worked with teen girls and young adults in church a lot, and one thing that I value is authenticity. And they know whenever they come to an event with me that we leave all of that church girl stuff at the door. We're authentic here. We're gonna say stuff how we feel it, you know. And I just think that this book would be such a great conversation starter with teens and young adults, teens and their mothers, or young adults and their mothers. So I'm just curious if you've heard of, or if you've been a part of any discussions with faith-based group and how it's gone.
So it's been a little mixed. So first I kind of got to cherry pick. I had this event that was like a big book party. Since I couldn't have an in-person book party, I did a virtual one called The Revival. And I had a lot of different Black women writers, singers, a Black mixologist making a signature drink, a Black woman DJ, and I also had a roundtable discussion. And part of that roundtable were two women pastors. One of them, Reverend Beverly Dale, who founded the Incarnation Institute for Sex and Faith. And then she co-teaches a leadership training class for clergy and sex educators and therapists on sex positive Christianity with Reverend Lisette Cross. So, you know, they're sex positive pastors. So they were the first clergy that I engaged with around this text. And then next week, and I can tell you the date in 1 second, December 7th, I'm going to be on Facebook Live with two friends of mine who are pastors. One is a Black woman pastor here in Pittsburgh, and another is a college friend of mine who is the pastor of, I think it's a United Church of Christ in Greenwich, Connecticut, which is like super white, and he's white. So that'll be an interesting, you know, faith-centered conversation. And then just last night, a Black woman pastor reached out and said, would you be willing to have a conversation about your book with a bunch of Black women clergy and what she calls clergy adjacent? So I guess other Black women who are in church leadership or rooted in the church. And I was like, absolutely, you know, I was hoping this would happen. And so we just scheduled that for December 17th. And I think that's going to be on a Zoom. I don't know if it's open to everybody. Someone asked that question a little while ago, and I haven't gotten an answer yet. But I'm really looking forward to that one because I think it's a very progressive group of Black clergy women, because they spelled women WOMXN. So, you know, I don't think I'm going to be up against a tough crowd when it comes to the themes in the book with that particular group. And I guess the only other contact would be, I was in another book club discussion like this one, And there was a woman in the group who I could tell she really wasn't feeling the book. And so she was asking me if I considered myself inside or outside of the church. And if I considered myself outside of the church, had anyone questioned my right to write this book? And I know that was her way of saying, I question your right to write this book.
Wow.
So the way
You
I
should have been
answered,
honest about it.
yeah, so I said, I think, people would consider me outside of the church. I don't go to church. I don't profess Christianity. I said, but I was in the church the first 35 years of my life. So I know what I'm talking about. And I said, but also I think that the fact that there are Christians who are really focused on defining people as in or out is worth discussing in a question in and of itself.
Right.
And finally, my last comment to her was that because what happens in the church doesn't just stop at influencing people in the church, it influences all of us. It is open, fair game for critique. So that was my answer to her.
Agreed.
That was a good answer.
Yeah,
Very good
definitely.
answer, because and you're right. I think a lot of the keeping within the image of the church causes generational harm for people, because you know of marriages of men who were gay, but because they were in the church, they couldn't be who they wanted to be. And then the trauma that it caused on their children once they finally couldn't live in that box anymore. It every story in here has a piece of that. We're holding on to this image, this feeling, and the hurt that comes. I mean, peach cobbler, my God, the master. But this is real though. You didn't make it. I mean, you did make it up, but this has happened somewhere more than one time.
Still happening.
Right.
Still happening.
Yeah, I said when I reviewed this on my Bookstagram that I have met every single one of these women.
Yes.
It's fiction, but it's not. I know every single one of the women in the book.
Yep.
Seriously.
Of course you have. I remember I was talking to a friend of mine at work, and we were talking about the show Glee. And then he was talking about how, Glee, they were talking about kids who were gay, bisexual, lesbian, and what. And I told him, I said, look, let me tell you something. If it wasn't for women and gay men, you wouldn't have a Glee club. You wouldn't have a black church.
Right.
Because the majority it's predominantly black women. If they didn't fry chicken, you wouldn't have a church building.
That's right.
We do fish fries in Louisiana.
It doesn't matter.
Florida too, with the white bread. You got it.
With the white bread and the potato salad and the peas.
That's
and the cake square.
right. I don't care if it was gumbo. You cook something, you sold dinners, you helped build that church. I mean, let's be real.
Different food, same principle in the like if you don't have women and gay men, none of those churches are existing. Like,
that's exactly right. But then you have 80% of black men head of churches.
Right.
And the people of all sexuality exist and always have existed, but they write it off as other things, as, oh, he's special. Oh, she's just going through a phase and things like that. Yeah.
Or we just expect people to just be, quiet about who they are. As long as you keep it under wraps, and then people suffer in silence and they suffer alone.
Yeah, I know a man who is gay, and his mom was like, well, I know you're going to do what you want, but just don't paint your nails and wear makeup. I'm like, you're putting him in a box.
Right.
I mean, if you're going to let him be him, then he's going to be him 100%.
Yep.
Any other questions? Last call.
I wanted to go back to the question about the book, The Secret Women. I have not read that book, but the concept about seeing our parents, in particular our mothers, seeing them as people, that came up last spring. Kiese Lehman was here in Pittsburgh, and he was giving a talk, and there was Q&A, And if you're familiar with Heavy, it's his memoir about his mother, and who was, abusive. Sorry, I'm getting a call. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I thought I put it on Do Not Disturb. Anyway, if you're familiar with his book, his mother was horribly abusive, loved him very much. So there's this really complex relationship. So my question for him was, what do we owe our mothers? And he said, we owe it to our mothers to see them as someone other than our mothers. Right. And I thought, man, how do we get to that? It's just like we were talking about the blanket earlier. Like sometimes it's not until our mothers pass away that we get to see them as somebody other than our mother, as full human beings and not just who they are to us. So I think that some of the stories grapple with that in different ways as well.
Yeah. It also influences relationships, because I've met some men who put their mother on this, mother pedestal, and not realizing that they are a person expecting someone to fit that. Yeah. And I'm like, your mom did the same thing you're judging that person for. I mean, you got here.
Yeah, I think, you know what? I think I learned early to see my mom as this whole human being with problems, how she struggled to raise her children, the sacrifices that she made, everything that she gave up. And she told me this when she was older. She said, if I had to do this all again, I wouldn't have children. And then someone asked me the question, when I told him the story, he said, well, didn't you feel bad about it? I'm like, no, because she's telling me how she feels. I mean, these are her emotions. Why should I blame her for that? For feeling the way she does.
Yeah.
Gave my mom The Secret Women. I'm really looking forward to talking with her about it once she reads it. Not necessarily that we have to dissect everything about us, because we've had those conversations in the past, but looking at that through a book, that is not about anything similar to your life, but will connect in every way, the way all books do, is always interesting.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No. Well, I thank you for writing this book. I love it.
And
it's entertaining on top of it. So it's a good book.
I appreciate it. And I appreciate this conversation. Every time I have a conversation, it gives the book new life for me. And I see it through a different lens, through the lens that you all are sharing with me. So thank you.
This was, hold it upside down.
Everything.
Excellent. Like literally sat down. Thanksgiving Day, I picked it up and I walked in the room. My husband was in there. I said, look, I've read all of this already. I can't put this book down. I had read all the way to Jael's story. Like just sitting in the chair. It was, but for Thanksgiving dinner, I would have finished it in one sitting.
I was the same way. Like all day Sunday, I pretty much read all of this. And for me, it's been a struggle. This pandemic has slowed down my reading so much. It's hard to get home staring
I will admit, I haven't finished it. I'm on Peach Cobbler now.
Oh, yeah.
I will be finishing this book, but yeah, I am enjoying this book.
I can't wait for the audiobook.
Yes.
Oh,
I'm
December
ready
29th.
December when?
Okay. 29th.
And
if you go, there's I'm trying to think, where is it? It's on Tanter's website, because Tanter is the publisher. They have a little excerpt. And Janina Edwards, she's a well-known narrator, and she is perfect. She is so perfect for this. I got to choose the narrator, and so they sent me some audition clips, and I had been clear, like, she has to be Black and she has to be Southern, like that's just non-negotiable. And the first one they sent me, I was like, she doesn't even sound human, much less Black. It was like Siri. I was like, is this a person? And then the next one they sent, she sounded like Blanche Devereaux had been to Mardi Gras and was
too much.
Like, no, but and I looked her up, and she was a Black woman. She just sounded like Blanche Devereaux. And then when I heard Janina, I was like, this is her. She read the part in Eula where Eula says to Carolina, don't you sometimes just feel like you could just bust? And I was like, that's exactly how I heard it in my head, the way she read it.
I always wonder how that works.
Yeah. And so I was so excited. I was like, this is her. And so if you go to the, I think it's Tantor's website, because that's the publisher. But if you just Google the title and audiobook, it should take you there. Or I might have it on my link in Instagram. The excerpt, she's reading Dear Sister, a little bit of Dear Sister, and it's so good. She did I love it. I really love it.
I'm definitely gonna go.
How do you spell that?
Tantor, Tantor.
Tor.
We're all going to be playing that the second we get
Right.
Got it.
Awesome. I saw a few people pick up their copies of their book. If y'all have them, I'm going to take a picture of us real quick. I just saw like a bunch of people holding them up. So if you got, all right. Oh, wait, everybody, are we there? We're waiting.
Crystal's getting hers. Crystal's grabbing her.
All right. 1, 2, 3. Got it. Great job. Thank you.
I'm trying to pull up my iPad. It's taking too long.
Me too.
Oh, wait. If you have it up now, I'm going to take one more.
No,
Sorry.
it's the text. I can't get to the.
Oh, and the thing.
There we go. Okay. Here we go.
1, 2, 3. Got it. Okay. Awesome. Well, Deesha, thank you so much for being with us.
This was fun. Thank you all.
It was an absolute blast. We are so honored to have you on here. Congratulations on your National Book Award nomination. That was
thank you.
So awesome. We're so proud of you. And we look forward to, what you're going to bring to us in the future.
All right. I'll definitely keep in touch, and we're all connected. I'm connected with Black Girl Magic. Book Girl Magic on social media, so we can keep up.
Yes, and we'll keep, I'll also look out for those other chats that you have upcoming, because I'm sure I definitely want to jump on some of those.
Oh, yes.
You have one tomorrow, don't you, with Harriet's Bookshop?
Let's see, what's tomorrow, the 3rd? So I have Harriet's Bookshop, which is going to be an IG Live at 5 Eastern.
Okay.
And then at 7, I'm in conversation with Samantha Irby, who is fantastic. And she's a good friend of mine. And tomorrow at 7. Books and Books, which is a Miami-based bookstore. And I think that's going to be Zoom. And so I'll post it, but I think you have to register for it. So I'm going to tweet tonight about this conversation, and then I'll tweet about Samantha tomorrow night so you can get the link. And it's just my name on Twitter.
I'm listening to Wow No Thank You right now.
Yeah.
I've read her other ones though too, but I want to hear her and talk to you about this.
She is so fun, and like I've known her since had the first book come out. Like we've known each other a while. We've known each other a long while, and so I'm really excited to be talking with her. Yeah.
I think we read one of our book club pick, right? It's been so long. I think our first year as a book club, we had her as one of the yellow one, maybe is come popular.
The yellow one.
We're Never Meeting in Real Life.
Yes.
It's hilarious. And hearing her read the book is even better.
Oh gosh. Yeah, she's great.
What bookstore is hosting that conversation?
It's Books and Books, which is based in Miami. And so if you go to books, it's booksandbooks.com, and under events, you can see the link.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have one question. What are you reading now?
Everything. Let's see. So I'm reading The Office of Historical Corrections, which is a short story collection and novella from Danielle Evans. And then
that just came out, right?
Yeah, that just came out. And then I have some advanced copies, The Prophet from Robert Johnson, which is it's a story about two enslaved men who are in love. And so like my mind is blown already from that.
I'm here for that story.
Right.
And then got to, rep my homegirl, Dantiel I say her name wrong every time. Dantiel Moniz. She's from Jacksonville, and she has a story collection called Milk, Blood, Heat, or is it Milk, Heat, Blood? I don't have it by me. But these stories are set in Florida. And then I feel like I'm missing somebody's. And then some other poetry collections. So Nate Marshall has a collection called Finna, like I'm finna go.
Oh yeah, I have that.
That's really good. And then my friend Kelly Stevens Kane, she's here in Pittsburgh. Her poetry collection is out. It's called Hallelujah Science. And she's a phenomenal poet. And then my girl, Yona Harvey's collection of poems, You Don't Have to Go to Mars for Love, which is just the best title.
I love that.
I was just in an event with her the other night, Monday night. So yeah, mixed bag of things. So
awesome.
Who was the author of the book? I think you said The Prophet.
Yeah.
Robert Johnson. Yeah.
I want to read that.
Yeah, I need that one.
Yeah, I want to read that too.
Yeah, Mariah Carey had it in her stack of holiday books.
She did. Okay.
Oprah did too. There's an Oprah magazine had a holiday roundup, and so his book was in that. And he's a friend of mine. And it's great when like good books are written by good people. And he just, I've followed him on social media for a long time. He goes by Son of Baldwin on social media. And when I was shortlisted for the National Book Award, he just reached out and was like, "We're cousins. I'm so proud of you." He was, we just became friends. Like, you just know your people, right?
I followed him.
Yeah. So he's good folks. So yeah.
That's so awesome. Well, thank you everyone for being here tonight. This was an amazing discussion for an amazing book.
Thank you.
I couldn't have asked for a better discussion tonight, and we are so thankful to have you here. So thank y'all. And I guess we will see you guys next time.
Yeah. Good night. Thank you.
Bye. Renee, thanks so much for hosting this. I found you on IG. This is my first book group for.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thanks for.
Oh, great.
I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself.
No, that's fine. Thanks for coming. We're so glad to have you, and we hope to see you next time.
I'm just a Deesha stalker, so I'm glad you let me in.
She's like one of my oldest and dearest friends. Hey, girl.
Hey, girl.
Y'all come back.
Y'all come back next month because we have.
Well, you know what? We have to. Tanisha is friends with Tammy too. So yeah, we'll be back.
Oh, Tammy's book is next?
Yes, she's our December book of the month to close out the year. So.
I'll stalk her too.
Wait, what's the date?
That's
January?
January 6th. Yep.
Okay.
January.
What time?
8 p.m. Same time. Yep.
Same time. Is it good? Same, login and password?
Yes, it'll be the exact same.
Okay, good. I have something, but it's in the afternoon. All right, I won't book anything. I'll be back.
Awesome.
Hey, y'all will be
back. All right.
Thanks for joining. Y'all have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.